Hi, welcome to Comfortable Shoes Studio and another episode of Art Making. I'm Leslie, and in this episode, I am working in my art journal. Now, off camera, I created a paneled page with some Montana paint markers. They were on clearance at Artists and Craftsmen, my local Artists and Craftsmen, and they are one of my favorite paint markers. They've got great flow, great colors, and a nice matte finish on paper. So, was really stoked to get a bunch of those for art journaling. I didn't get a ton of them because they're still pricey, even on clearance. So in this, what I've done is off camera, I've taken those paint markers and I've just made some random panels on a page in this bright or yellowy orange, orangey yellow. I think it's more of an orangey yellow. So then I'm working on top of it with ink wash in a water brush. So I am right now using my lightest color or lightest shade of ink wash. This is a relatively light mid-tone on top of this yellow. And I'm just doing sort of random blobs here and there. I'm working around the page. I'm not like working panel to panel. What I'm trying to do is make sort of a um, kind of random series of blobs that I'm going to pull images out of later. As you know, I've been using this technique for a couple of weeks now. I'm totally hooked on it as a method for journaling and art journaling, and it just works really well. So now I'm adding some water. This water brush is actually completely out of water, and I'm dipping it into my water well. Um, so yeah, going back, this is just a really great technique at allowing you to be really, really loose in your art journal and force you to use your imagination a little bit. So off camera, I hit that with a heat gun to lighten it, to dry it out rather. And you'll notice that the color when dry from that mid-tone is much lighter than what it looked like when it was wet. So now I'm going in with my much darker mid-tone in this ink wash. And this is a pretty traditional ink wash. I'm using, I think, carbon black ink, which is a waterproof ink once dry, and you know, clean filtered water to make that. Can't remember the number of drops, but I mixed up a whole large container of the ink wash so that I can refill these brushes with the wash as they get dry. You can see on the left hand side next to my travel water cup, the ink wash container, one of those Dollar Tree um, craft bottles with a turnable top. It holds quite a bit of liquid, and I didn't even fill them half full. Really wish they were available in multiple sizes and not just the large size. So I switched over to using a bit of a sponge when I am watercoloring, and it holds a ton of water as you are working. So here you can see I sopped up a little bit of blob of ink, and then I realized I was getting a nice little imprint from it. So I went in with the ink wash and squirted it directly onto the sponge and dabbed it on there to create some more texture on the page. I really enjoyed this. I felt like it gave it like some tree-like texture, and 10/10 would do again. What I really like about these pre-colored blobs with the paint markers is that they give a nice mid-tone for the ink wash. So the ink wash actually darkens it a lot. All right, so I've dried that out with the heat gun, and again, once dry, that ink wash drops down in values substantially, and had a lot of bubbles on the page. I am really pushing the limits of the sketchbook with the amount of water I am using. The sketchbook is great for gel pen, ink, markers, and a lot of materials. The surface of the paper is pretty delicate when it comes to putting on water, and it just wrinkles like bananas when I add in the any sort of water product or water soluble product. Um, anyway, I am now using a ultra fine tipped paint marker to add in and pull out the details from these blobs and whatnot. I've been playing with this kind of bad guy character that I call the Great Bloviator. I think I might switch it up to the Oblivious Bloviator. Um, and if you've ever watched any of my art journaling videos before, I tend to use symbols and characters to encapsulate ideas. Um, I'm not going to go into the Oblivious Bloviator and what that character means in terms of my art journal, largely because I can't yet. Maybe in a few years, or we'll see. Maybe a year from now, I can talk about the Oblivious Bloviator. But yeah, so I'm drawing this character in, and the paint marker that I'm using is a Xena Color, which is a Amazon cheapo brand. They come in a 5 pack and they are fantastic. I'll make sure there's a link in the description for them. Um, I got them through the Amazon Vine program, and like when it comes to stuff from the Vine program, sometimes it's absolute trash. I got really lucky with these particular paint markers in that they're actually super nice. They do the job really well. Super nice flow. The ink dries matte and not shiny, and it's really opaque. So no complaints about these paint markers, and they're pen sized. They're not just super fat and whatnot. Um, so yeah, so I'm going back and forth through panel to panel. I usually work pretty consecutively with these panels when I'm doing this, but I didn't for this one. So I'm just kind of going through, adding the Oblivious Bloviator into um, the scene. Yeah, so here I'm just, again, adding in the character, getting those eyes in. Um, I'm using some comics like shorthand in the character. Like the eyes are squinted shut tight, the mouth is always wide open. Um, this character always wears a hat, um, thick eyebrows. I'm trying to not smudge my page. And you'll also notice here that I let the lines flow into the area between the panels, and I clean that up later with a fat black paint marker. And I've done that on all of these pages. Initially, I wasn't doing that, and I felt the pages just felt super messy and not clean like I usually expect and think of as a comic book page. I am trying to kind of capture to a point that comics inspiration. I forgot to mention here on the left side of the image in the sketchbook, or the left page of the sketchbook rather, are the colors that I picked up in the Montana paint markers. Just like a slight range of paint markers. You know, I got my color opposite thing. I got a teal and whatnot. I also picked up some pit markers, brush tips, and then you can see there are three prints of a rubber stamp that I made actually last or in the spring with an eraser. Maybe I should do a video about eraser carving because eraser carving is fantastic. I know I did one before where I carved an entire alphabet out of cheap Dollar Tree erasers. I recently picked up a Dollar Tree carving set, and I really got to give that a try and see how it's going to work. Anyway, and now I am adding some of the landscape in here. So I'm still using the paint marker, adding in some like little trees and detail to what I decided was kind of a cliff face. I'm not sure what the light area is in the distance. Is it the ocean? Is it fields? I kind of feel like it's the ocean, with some land far off in the distance. Yeah, little fir trees or spruce trees that I'm filling in. This is when I'm drawing forests and whatnot. I always revert back to the forest style where I grew up, which was a lot of balsam fir, a lot of spruce, occasional pine trees, occasional cedar trees, with the occasional hardwood mixed in. But yeah, mostly spruce and balsam fir, where I grew up on the coast of Maine. So that's what I tend to revert to. Um, and I'm learning how to better draw hardwood trees now as an adult because just I grew up, drawing those fir and spruce trees off in the distance. And it's really like a center line and then little squiggly lines coming off the sides of that center line. And hopefully the noise cancellation is making it so you can't hear it. But my street is under construction and they've been starting work, or they show up around 6:30, 7 o'clock, and then they start moving equipment around 7:30. And so some of the big trucks just started moving right now. But I think the noise cancellation has been doing a pretty good job at cutting that noise out of my videos. Yeah, just filling in this little island hill with the tree squiggles that I use. So I'm not being precise here. I'm literally using a scribble that is an upright line and then side to side lines, that are short side to side lines, longer upright lines, shorter side to side lines, if that makes sense. I really kept this monochromatic. Usually, when I do these comics pages, I add in a lot more color. I've got a bunch of these going where I added a ton of color to them. But this is really loose and freeing to just like use black and then some shades of gray. I think towards the end, I might add in some white. I don't remember, honestly. All right, so here's the white. I'm using a Uniball Signo Bold. It's a 1 millimeter tip white pen. I think at this point I had not yet gotten the Color paint markers in white. Um, this Uniball white gel pen, it's a 207 with a cap, is generally one of my favorite white pens, but for whatever reason, this one is just not great. Have problems with it skipping and feeling scratchy, and I haven't really had one of these that skips and feels scratchy in quite a long time. So having one that is not great is really a bummer. Um, I don't know what made this one scratchy. I'm just going in and adding some white in here. Yeah, I think I decided that this was water. So it's like a coastal scene. The oblivious bloviator is coming in and spouting off his mansplaining nonsense, um, ignoring the beautiful scenery around him. And then I grab some paint markers. So I do add in some color here. Yes, so the Great Bloviator has a red eye, and a little nod to the Eye of Sauron there. Um, just when the Bloviator's eyes are open, it's red. And then I add some peach color to the face of the Great Bloviator. So one of the things I do like to do with most of my paint markers when I am uh, sort of working in layers, I use a heat gun on them to dry them out. They don't take that long to dry, but if I'm working quickly, I really want them to be dry before I add any black into them, particularly if I'm looking for line work or anything like that. Sometimes I want to blend the colors, but in this case, I really wanted crisp black lines. I'm going back in with my paint marker and adding in black over the red and the peach color. One of the things that you can't see well in this view is that the paint marker is slightly transparent, and you like there the tone of the value of the ink wash is coming through a little bit. I found the paint marker looks really opaque on screen, but for whatever reason, in this instance, it was not that opaque. Generally, the paint markers I'm using, it's like set of 12 colors that's really intended for kids. It's got a brush tip, great for a sketchbook, but they're usually pretty opaque. But in this case, for whatever reason, not as opaque as they usually are. Um, I decided that the great Bloviator was going to only have one side of his face, in this case, be in the light, and then the other side of the face is going to be in the dark. And um, the it's kind of like the Great Bloviator's face is in the dark on the opposite side of the land. Just trying to like in telling the story, like everything that I do in my art journal has some sort of journal meeting. And so great the Oblivious Bloviator is incorrect in a lot of different ways. So here I am coming in with the 15 millimeter paint marker and just cleaning up those lines between the panels. Um, I think this just gives the page a cleaner look. I know black is not the traditional panel color between panels on a comic, but it works for me for my art journal. And in this case, this cheapo paint marker from Amazon is starting to run out of ink because I have used this a lot. Um, I've used it for a lot of these panels, but also if you've watched any of my portrait videos, I have used this extensively in my 100 Heads Challenge um, images. So you can see those here or on my Instagram account. And but anyway, I've used this marker a lot. It's lasted for a long time. I really like this paint marker. It does a great job, has good flow. The nib is lasting really, really well. But I do need to grab a fresh one because this one is starting to get fiddly as I'm working and not having the same great flow it did as when I first got it. So yeah, so that's the video. I appreciate you for being here. I appreciate you watching this. If you're still here, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up icon. If you really like my video, hit that subscribe button. If you really, really like the video, share this on your socials or with someone who you think might benefit from doing this. Thanks, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.